Welcome to the Punting is Winning podcast. Just two fans talking all things Hawkeyes. Here are your hosts, JD and Keith.
Welcome back, Hawkeye fans, to another episode of Punting is Winning, the All-Iowa podcast. We are your hosts. That's JD. I'm Keith. Welcome back to another summer edition of the podcast. Just got done with Big Ten Media Days this last week. Not a lot of groundbreaking stuff there. Not really a lot to report on or talk about there. But first things first, let's talk about our question of the week last week, which was, who do you think will be the leading rusher for Iowa this year? Or if maybe you think it'll be by committee, however you think it. I think that the resounding consensus was Kamari Moulton. That's probably a fair statement. I mean, he does seem to be kind of the heir apparent so far. I did see one person said that between Kamari Moulton, Jazz Patterson, and Terrell Washington Jr., that they would all have 777 yards apiece. I mean, I would take that in a heartbeat.
Sounds good.
But I don't see that happening, but we'll see.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say it won't be Kamari Moulton.
Okay. Who do you think it'll be?
TJ Washington.
Okay.
I think Kamari's going to get dinged up and he's not going to play a lot. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I am. I hope he is the leading rusher, and I hope he rushes for 1,500 yards or more. I hate to be the pessimist, but sometimes being a pessimist means being a realist. And I know that sometimes these guys can get hurt and derail what your expectations are. So I'm going to go that route.
The good thing is there's a lot of depth behind him.
There is.
Quality depth.
Unknown from...
I mean, I'm not going to... I wouldn't sleep on Nathan McNeil either.
Yeah, but we don't know. He's never been, on the field in an Iowa uniform during the game. So Brevin Dahl is another running back. He was on the team last year, redshirted. I think he was hurt a lot, so he didn't really play a lot, if at all.
Xavier Williams.
There's some unknowns behind the main three.
Yeah.
And you're going to see that a lot
I still
today.
think there's quality depth behind him, but I don't know that I would say I'd want any of the top three to get hurt by any means. Obviously, you don't want anybody to get hurt, but
no.
I think it is probably a position where if an injury does happen, there's good enough depth behind it that it shouldn't affect it too much.
Well, we hope there's enough depth behind.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen years where we've had a lot of depth and it ended up having nobody at the end of the year. So, 2005 rings a bell.
I don't think we're going to have a Caleb Johnson on the team this year.
No, and I don't think we need that. It would be nice. Yeah, it'd be nice if one person grabbed the bull by the horns and took the role and just got a stranglehold on it. But the same can be said that if, like Kelvin said, if you have three guys that average 700 yards, I'd take that too, over a guy that gets 1,200 and another guy that gets 3. So we'll see. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Question of the week this week, going in a little bit of a different direction. Iowa has not missed a bowl game since 2012. It was the last time that they did not make a bowl game.
Okay.
So. I mean, there's enough bowl games out there that I think even a 5-7 Wisconsin was being considered last year. So with that said, what bowl game do you think Iowa will be in this year? And bonus points if you want to go out on a limb and say who you think they'll play in that bowl game.
And if you're right at the end of the season, I'm going to ask you for the lottery numbers.
Yes.
So that, because that is a huge pick. If somebody can pick the bowl game that I was in and their opponent at this stage of the year, you've been Back to the Future, and you've got your little sports almanac thing going with you. And
just something just for fun, though.
Speaking do you want to try?
What's that?
Do you want to try for that, or do you want to wait?
I'm going to wait.
Okay.
and wait till next week. But speaking of fun, this last week was Big Ten Media Day, or Media Days, I should say. Coaches, 6 coaches a day for 3 days. Impossible to sit and listen to all of them. It's you can listen to one and you've heard them all. It's, kind of the Ferentz script of, well, we don't know what we have for sure. We'll have to wait and see.
I like my
Thanks to the
team.
commissioner. Everybody's in the same boat, blah, 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 blah. No real groundbreaking information there at all. I did think that the one interview that I thought was, I don't know, maybe the most intriguing for me was the On the Side with Koen Entringer.
I did not catch that. So if you want to catch me up on it.
Yeah, just basically talking to him about why he stuck with Iowa, and, when guys are searching for instant gratification, starting positions, playing time, whatever, and how he's kind of rode that wave a little bit and just said, this is where he wanted to be. And the question that I kind of thought was interesting was why he was selected to go to media days. And, typically in the past, and maybe it's been strictly off of assumptions, maybe, that Ferentz and the coaching staff picked who goes. I know this was the leadership staff that picked this year. I don't know if that's the same, been that way every year, or if it was just this year, but he was voted on by the players to go. And I think that speaks volumes for his character.
Yes.
Very well-spoken individual. Loved listening to his interview, and just, one of those things where I think he's kind of one of those guys that he walks around with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Not that, not in the sense that Iowa was his only offer and that's, that made him mad. But I think it was more of a, I'm going to prove that they were right type of thing. And, it just, the mannerisms that he's carried himself with, and the way he spoke highly of the program and just of the teammates that he has, just speaks volume for the culture that is Iowa football. And, outsiders want to say, oh, well, there's racism, there's systemic racism in the head coaching and blah, blah, blah. I think that's just a bunch of blather from jealous fans who don't like the fact that you've got a coach that's been here for 27 years. And, they can't keep a coach more than 5 years because they can't win. And yeah, some people may say we're settling for mediocrity. Yeah, Buck Wildhawk, I'm calling you out right now that we're settling for mediocrity with Kirk Ferentz, but there are far worse things we could be than mediocre. And I think outside of the results on the field, you have to look at the intangibles of the character of the individuals that come out of the program. And that's a direct indication of the leadership that they have. And I don't think you couldn't get much better in a sense of quality human being as Kirk Ferentz.
Yeah. I won't argue with you. One of the things, though, if we want to talk about Big Ten Media Days, one of the things I want to talk about a little bit is when the Big Ten commissioner, Tony Petitti, came out and said, they talked about the playoff format, and he wanted to do a 4-4-2-2 scenario. And I don't think he got a lot of backing. Maybe, from the conference coaches, he probably did because that's their boss basically, or you got to play within the rules of what they're. But the SEC didn't want to do that. They wanted to go with the 5 champions and then the 7 at-larges for the 12, and then if they go to the 16, it would be 5 and 11. So 5 champions.
Because they know that the SEC knows that the bias towards them is going to allow them to get more teams in, based on, for lack of a better word, ESPN pumping them up. That's why they don't want to go to that other format.
Here's the problem I see with the way things are right now is that I think a lot of teams are judged on, wrongly so, are judged on their heritage and where they were years ago. And you should look at every team, especially when you're talking about a frozen year in time. You were talking about this year, 2025/26. You shouldn't be looking at 23, 24. You shouldn't be looking at 24, 25. You should be looking at that team individually. That 1 year frozen in time, not what they were. And just look at what they've done, who they've played, and then you can assess them on that, not on, well, let's give an example. Let's say Alabama. Everybody knows they're going to give Alabama the benefit of the doubt because of who they are. You're not going to get the benefit of the doubt from a Kansas, maybe in basketball, but you don't in football. So what I'm getting at is that I don't like the fact that each team, when they're brought in, it's like the Blue Bloods always have first pick, so to speak. It's not really the way it is, but they're always the ones that they're thought of first. The Notre Dames, the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Penn States, the teams that are notably very good. Perennially very good. But you can't look at that. People just get hung up on the Blue Bloods and they say, oh, we got to have Alabama in there because they've always been good. And this year they might be 8-4, but they're still Alabama and they still deserve to be in. No, they don't. Not if there's a 9-3 or a 10-2 team that you're leaving out. I do care about strength of schedule because that should play a role. But I really can't wait to go to 16, to be honest. And they haven't decided that yet. They haven't decided if they're going to stay at 12, go to 16, or just they could even go back if they wanted to 4. But I think 12 right now is the sticking point. If they go to 16, great. Then they have to worry about, the additional, at-large bids. Who's going to get in from what? And it just have to be an individual thing. It wouldn't have to be conference affiliation. It wouldn't be any of that. You'd have to look at each team on an individual basis, based on their schedule, based on their record, based on what they did in that 365-day window. Not 5 years ago, 10 years ago, like I said before. And that's one of the things that really needs to be sorted out. Because last year, they were talking about Iowa could have been, if they would have expanded that to 16, Iowa was the 6th in the conference. They would actually have gotten some kind of a thought, of actually getting in. Well, the first thing out of people's mouths is, oh my God, Iowa could have even actually made that. This is a horrible idea. Well, and it would have been, because Iowa didn't deserve to be in it last year for just the way that they played. They had a good record, but they didn't beat anybody with a pulse. They beat the teams they were supposed to beat, and actually lost to a couple of teams they weren't supposed to lose to, UCLA and Michigan State. So I don't want to go on a big rant, and I'm trying not to, but the main point is, look at each team. They go to 16, then you've got to figure out who the best 16 teams are. And that's it. You can't look at the past.
Yeah. And that's always going to be subjective as far as, what in your eyes is the best 16 and what in my eyes are the best 16. Yeah, we can look at records, we can look at strength of schedule, but there's always going to be some inherent bias thrown in there. And it happens in basketball as well. You don't always get the best 68 teams. I mean, granted, obviously you're throwing in conference champions, conference tournament champions that maybe wouldn't have gotten there if they hadn't won that championship, right? So you've got those teams like the 11 and 20 teams that get hot at the end of the year and win their conference tournament. They don't deserve it to be in there. I mean, yes, they do, because they won their conference tournament. I'm not saying that they're not deserving in that sense, but they're not one of the 68 best teams. You're leaving somebody out because of that. But it's the same when you start looking at the football aspect of it. How do you quantify the difference? You can probably say, okay, these are the top 8 or top 10 teams. Pretty easily find that out. It's the bottom 6 when you're debating between those bottom 10 teams. So let's say you've got your top 20, let's say. And now you've got to pick 6 of those 10 teams that are remaining to get in. Well, it's very subjective because the difference between the team that's ranked 14th and the team that's ranked 19th may be very minuscule. Or it could just be the fact that the team ranked 14th was ranked higher to start the year, which again, that's where I say throw out the preseason rankings. Don't rank anybody until about the 5th week. But let's say that that team that's ranked 14th started out the year ranked 3rd. Okay. They've lost some games to drop them to 14th, whereas the team that's 19th has won when they weren't even in the discussion. So now they've played their way into the top 25, whereas the other team's playing their way out of the top 25, so to speak. Is that 14th ranked team better than a 19th ranked team?
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
So how do you, that's where it becomes very subjective. But I get what you're saying, and I get where the Big Ten commissioner is going with his format and why the SEC doesn't want to get in, doesn't want to be involved in that. Because, like I said, that inherent bias towards, well, the SEC is always a tougher conference. They've got more tough teams. Their thought is well, you use Alabama, for example. On a 16 team, if you go top 2, Alabama's not in it last year anyway, right? They weren't top 2. But
right.
If you take out that automatic qualifiers of that, it gives them a heck of a lot better chance. Now, granted, 9-3 with a 16 team format. Yeah, they're probably in anyway. But what I'm saying is they feel that we're the mighty SEC. We've got a stronger conference. We're going to get the 8-4s and the 7-5s in that the other 9-3 teams aren't going to get in, because the inherent bias of, well, the SEC is tougher is going to allow them to get in. That's what they're gambling on. That's why they don't want to go to that format.
One of the things that they need to really consider is an 8-team or an 8-game conference schedule versus the Big Ten's got 9. And so you need to really need to try to, we need to get apples to apples and oranges to oranges thing here. This is, when you're only playing 8 and you've got 4 games against, maybe they do schedule 1 or 2 good teams on their schedule, but they play like the Citadel, North Carolina, Raleigh. Just, you're going to have to figure out a way to play better teams, because your strength of schedule may at some point play into this heavily. And I know it's hard to schedule a team in advance. Let's say, we want to go out and schedule Pitt again, Iowa. Well, let's say Pitt's good and they've won their conference a couple different times. Well, when you schedule them for 2028 because they're good, 2028 they have a crap year and they're 4-8, and they don't do anything for your strength of schedule other than bring it down.
Well, that's kind of where I'm going back to the misnomer of the SEC being the elite conference, right? They're gambling on, our strength of schedule is going to be higher because we play Georgia and Auburn and LSU and Tennessee and all that. Well, what if Auburn goes 4-8 and Tennessee goes 5-7 and LSU has a crap season and they're 6-6? Is that really a higher strength of schedule than a team that maybe had to play some 9-3 teams? Which that's where they're gambling on. They're hoping for that bias in the media to say, well, the SEC is always a tougher conference, regardless of the records.
That's where
what
we
they tried to pull last year.
That's where we go right back to what they've done in the past versus what they're doing right now.
Exactly.
Because
and that's what they tried to pull last year.
I know.
The whole Alabama argument.
If you look at the last 2 national championship games, there wasn't an SEC team anywhere near it. In fact, it was Pac-10, Big Ten, and then independent Big Ten. Where was the SEC? SEC got smoked when they were in. I know Tennessee was in it. And they got
last year
derailed big time by Ohio
Georgia
State.
Was in it.
Who'd they lose to? See what
Georgia
I'm getting
got
at?
beat by Notre Dame.
What I'm getting at is you sit there and proclaim that you're the toughest team, toughest league in all of college football, but you have to prove it every year, and they didn't prove it the year before, and they didn't prove it last year. So you really can't, until you are back on top, you can't brag that you are the best conference unless you have a team that is either in the championship game or at least have 3 or 4 that were in the semis, or 3 that was in the semis.
It is, again, it goes back to a bias by, you talk about guilt by association. In this case, it's propped up by association. People assume, well, it's the SEC, Auburn and Georgia and Alabama and LSU and blah, 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 blah. They're not always going to be 12-0 teams. You can't have them be 12-0 teams. They're just not going to be physically, it's not humanly possible.
That's why the Big Ten's not going to have a 12-0 team probably.
Well, and I know they kind of busted my chops a little bit on the whole Penn State and big game James and all that. That's why I said I don't like picking them going undefeated. If there was a team that could do it this year of his, it would be this one. That was the point I was trying to get at. And I hope I'm wrong, because I don't like Penn State and I don't want them to win it. But this is probably the best team they've had to do that.
Yeah.
Now, granted, you got to throw in the factor that James Franklin has a tendency to choke, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Kind of getting back to the media days, I did catch Bielema, and I caught the one that I kind of laughed the whole way through it was my favorite coach, PJ Fleck. I tell you, and I texted you. I said, "Did you see his media conference?" And you said, "No, you didn't." And I said, "Well, save yourself the time." All he did was basically he talked. You get 15 minutes. That was the agenda. Was you get 15 minutes to talk about your team and your expectations and whatever, coach speak,
and take questions,
so to speak, and take questions. He spoke for 14 minutes and took one question.
A lot of them did that, though. I think they tried to avoid questions asked of them.
Now, Kirk Ferentz was done in like 10 minutes and took several questions. And I was wanting to watch Deshaun Foster to see if he improved.
Was a lot better this year than last year.
Well, you can only go up from where he was last year. That was horrible. Yeah. Yeah. But getting to Iowa on the media days, basically, Kirk, it's the same every year. We like the team. We don't know what we've got. We don't know how good we are. Same old, same old. I mean, it's like 20 different ways to say the same thing.
Yeah. The one thing I did take from it is I kind of go back and compare it to previous press conferences at Big Ten Media Days. How he talks about the team, it's the same kind of speech, but it's the way he talks about it that it's like that. I don't want to tip my hand that I think we have a pretty darn good team this year type of thing. So I'm going to say, I like the team. We got some growing to do, blah, blah, blah. But it's the way he says it makes me feel like he feels that this is a better team than most people are thinking.
Well, I think we have a quarterback that is heads and tails above what we've had. So in that respect, since the quarterback is the general of the team, especially of the offense, if you've got somebody of quality that can take the snaps and move the team, that's always going to give you a leg up, as opposed to what we've dealt with the last 5 years, which is the understatement of the year.
Well, I think let's play a little bit of armchair quarterback or couch coach, whatever you want to call it. Thought maybe what we could do today is go through, because I know that this current landscape of the NIL, that players are getting paid based on their depth chart positions. So it's kind of no real big secret that Kirk's not putting out a depth chart until probably the week of game day. So I thought maybe let's try to see what we think the offensive depth chart looks like, the 2 deeps. And you can go 3 deep if you want in certain spots. That's fine too. I don't mind. But I figured we'd go through each position. I'll let you talk about who you think they are, 1 and 2, 1, 2, and 3, whatever the case, and kind of give your logic behind why you put them there, and then I'll give mine, and then we just go on to the next one. How's that sound?
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay. Well, let's start out at the most obvious one, quarterback.
Yeah, I don't think you put anybody but Mark Gronowski in there if he's healthy. I think that's just a no-brainer. You've got unknown commodities behind him, guys that have never taken a snap. The only one that has is Jackson Stratton. I think you're looking at Jackson Stratton being fourth string at this point. I think you've got Hank Brown looking at number 2, and he is in a battle with Jeremy Hecklinski. Either one of those two could end up being number 2. But I think you got a solid number 1 at Gronowski. I don't think that's going to change. And even Kirk said we expect him to be the starter or perceive him as the starter per se. I'd like to see everybody being pushed. I'd like to see, I don't want to say this through all of this, the whole thing, the whole list. I want to see the best players play, regardless of whether they played last year or the year before or never played a down in their life at Iowa. If they're the best player at that position, then put them in. You should never play politics at this level. So, I think Gronowski's number 1. If that's where we're going, Hank Brown, Hecklinski 2-3 or 2A, 2B. And then after that, I hope we don't have to see him. No offense to those guys. Running back, I think.
Well, wait a minute. Let me talk about my quarterback situation too. Well, I agree completely. Gronowski's the number 1 as long as he's healthy. And I also agree with you that Hank Brown and Hecklinski are probably at this point 2A, 2B. And I think because of that relationship with Warren Ruggiero puts Hecklinski above Stratton, probably puts him more on a par with Hank Brown, even though Hank Brown had the spring practices to learn the offense. I just, things I've heard about Hecklinski just are good things. Smart kid, high-ranked quarterback coming out of high school, knows what he's doing. I would not be a bit surprised if by the end of the year he was the solid number 2. I mean, again, I'm not advocating for it. I'm hoping that the best player plays. I don't care. I have no dog in the fight, so to speak. I just hope it's the best player. And my feeling is that I think by the end of the year, he's probably moved up to at least, if not a solid number 2, there's a real tough battle come spring between those two to determine who's going to be the starter. Yeah,
that's a good point. Because when Gronowski's, it's gone and playing in the NFL on Sundays, next year there's going to be a battle unless there's some transfer kid that wants to come in. It's a quarterback from some other place that's got a lot of accolades. I would think that you're looking at Brown, Hecklinski probably as your 1 and 2 next year, however that plays out. So that's big. 3. Yeah. Do you want to do your running back and then I'll do mine? We'll kind of do a swap back and forth type thing.
All right. So running back, I have Kamari Moulton as the starter, just based off of incumbency, I suppose. And then behind him, I have Terrell Washington as number 2. I think he will be the number 2 by midseason. That's not to take anything away from Jazz Patterson. Again, like you said, their injuries can happen. These guys are probably going to get dinged up a little bit. All those guys are going to play, and I think they're going to play a considerable amount of time. I would also throw in that I think Nathan McNeil plays at least the 4 games and in red shirts, but I honestly think he probably plays more.
Well,
I don't think he red shirts.
Not sure how to take that, to be honest. That we need him to play, or he's just getting in some mop-up
situational
duty.
And probably on special teams.
Okay. Well, it's better to play him and keep him on the team than not play him and have him thinking about other schools.
Right.
Via the transfer portal. Are you done?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. I think the same way. I'm going to go with Kamari Moulton, number 1. Basically, from experience last year, he was the number 2 guy. I'm going to go TJ Washington as well, but I'm going to put Jazzy Patterson right there with him. I think Jazzian's kind of a kind of more of a downhill runner, whereas the other 2 are more juke types. But Jazzian's a little bit bigger build. He's the kind of guy you might want to throw in like first and goal at the 2 and see if he can batter ram his way into the end zone. I've got a bunch here because there's like three different.
Go three on the wide receiver.
Well, I'm going to go probably more than that. I think Jacob Gill.
No, I'm saying X, Y, and Z receivers.
Okay. Yeah, I think Jacob Gill and Seth Anderson, Sam Phillips, Reese Vanderzee, Dayton Howard, and KJ Parker will all see playing time at one form or the other, on one side or the other. I think they're pretty much interchangeable. I think they will all know each other's routes. I think they will understand the concepts on which side they're playing, which, if they're playing in more of a split end, or if they're playing more of an out wide receiver, if they're playing, the end around, everybody's going to know. And I think all of these guys are going to get a lot of playing time. So I wouldn't count anybody out at any position at any point. You could see KJ Parker starting at maybe the end of the season. You could see Dayton Howard getting a lot of snaps. He might even start. There's so much that you can do here with these guys. I think this is probably the deepest wide receiver room I have seen for a while. They're still unknown quantity. I think we know what we got with Jacob Gill, Seth Anderson, and Reese Vanderzee. But the other guy, Sam Phillips, I haven't seen much out of him. Dayton Howard and KJ Parker, we saw them at the spring game. They did impress me. They have good builds. Jarrett Bowie will play some too, I would expect, more than maybe you'd think. I just think there's a lot of room for playing time in that group.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go a little bit different direction. I like the 6 that you mentioned, but I would also throw in, I think Caden Weegen's going to have some play on the offensive side more than just being a punt return or kick return guy. I think he's going to get more snaps at wide receiver. Is that going to be at the expense of somebody else? Obviously, yes. But I see more, I kind of see the wide receivers being more situational. So, like, for example, you could put a Reese Vanderzee and a Dayton Howard out there in fade situations because they're both big, tall receivers, can go up and high point easier. You need somebody to maybe fit in the slot that can match up against a slower safety or a linebacker. That's where you've got a Sam Phillips or a KJ Parker situation, guys that can just burn. You know what you're getting with Jacob Gill, and I think you same with Seth Anderson. I think you've got solid receivers. They seem to be more just as based strictly on the fact that I have not had the pleasure of seeing a healthy Seth Anderson in the 2 years he's been here. I look at him and Jacob Gill more as like my possession type of receivers. So the reliable guys that I can go and I need a 10-yard out pattern or something, those are the guys I'm looking at. But if I want to go, if I'm going to go inside the 20 and I'm going to throw a fade, I want my Reese Vanderzees or my Dayton Howards or somebody like that who's got a little more height, easier high point of that ball. And then if I need the speed, I've got Parker, I've got Phillips, I've got Weegen. I think you just got so many options there. End rounds, Caden Weegen on an end around is a good situation to have. And that's not even thinking the fact of the Terrence Smith, the incoming freshman, who by all accounts is really good. I mean, we'll have to wait and see how he does when he gets in the offense. We haven't seen him do anything in the Iowa offense at all, but I mean, he's good enough that he could play. He might see a situation where he gets in there too. You're right. This is a deeper wide receiver bench or wide receiver group that we've had in a long time, and finding enough snaps for all those guys might be difficult. Because that's not even throwing in Jarrett Bowie,
right? Who
I think could see a lot of snaps too. I just think you've got a lot of opportunities and a lot of ways you can go for mismatches, situational type of offense, whatever. So I think it's a good problem to have, so to speak.
Yeah, agreed.
So, all right, let's move on to the tight ends. I think it's pretty much a no-brainer. It's going to be Addison Estringa and Zach Ortworth. DJ Voname might be the wild card in there. That's also potential that like Thomas Meyer might, depends on how these guys come in, these incoming freshmen and what their size is and what their skill level is and how quickly they can pick things up, because I think that is a position where there's a lot of opportunity because we don't necessarily have the proven depth at tight end that we've had in years past. And I think that's a very good spot for guys that can, get early playing time in, the freshman guys or redshirt freshmen.
Yeah. I agree. I've got Addison Stringa. We do kind of know what we have with him. He's solid. Zach Ortworth's made some good plays in the past, so we know we kind of know what we have with him. And I've got Hayden Large in there, and he could be, the next guy in. I know he was working at fullback there for a while last year and the year before, but he's been a tight end basically his career. It's a solid group. There's other guys out there that may be working for playing time, pushing for playing time. We'll just have to see how that whole plays out. But I think Stringa and Ortworth are your two solid tight ends. And after that, Large and then some of the guys you said, Meyer and Nat, would probably be able to work their way in and find some playing time.
And I not disrespecting Hayden Large by any means, and that and actually forgot that I think about him as a fullback, and we don't really use a fullback that much anymore. He's probably more of that Chris Cooley H-back situation, kind of guy out of the backfield, catch the ball out of the backfield, can block really easy out of the back because he's used to it now. So yeah, I could see him pushing for that number 3 spot as well, and he'll definitely get snaps in there too. And because there's times where Iowa will run a 3 tight end offense.
Yeah,
and I think you want that for a guy that's a big blocking tight end too.
We've seen that in the past, so yeah, there could be opportunity galore for tight ends on this team, and we'll see what they do. I don't know under Tim Lester's offense how many times we'll run a 3 tight end set, but we may do it a couple times here and there just to throw a different wrinkle in on teams that may have not seen it this year. But left tackle, I'm not breaking any new ground here. This is Jack Dotzler and Trevor Lauk, probably be your 1-2 there. And I think any of these guys could, you put left tackle on here. Trevor Lauk could roll over and maybe even be right tackle if he needed to be. He could float a little bit too. And there's a lot of guys that can float and move from position to position as needed if injuries would happen to occur. And we don't know what we've got really behind those guys because we don't know any playing time. They haven't really played much. Yeah. There's not much there. It just, it's like, those are your 2 guys.
I wouldn't discount Bryce George either. You got a grad transfer. Granted, he's coming from Division II, but he's got the size, he's got the experience. I think he's been a right tackle. I don't know, throwing over on the left side may not be quite as easy of a transition. I've never played offensive line. Well, I shouldn't say that. I played offensive line when I was in middle school, but that's not true offensive line. I was a fat kid, so they put me on the line. But I think he's going to be a wild card in there as well. Can't discount him, but you can't. I think Trevor Lauk is probably the one that is probably the one they hope takes the reins of that. I think he has the most upside, but yeah, I think Trevor Lauk, Jack Dotzler, Bryce George are your left tackle competitors. And as you've seen, offensive line wise, you've had to have multiple people at multiple positions. So, and that's not to say that any one of these guys couldn't flip over to the right side if need be, or slide inside to guard if need be. You could be a situation where if, Bo Stevens has been hurt and maybe that pushes Jack Dotzler to left guard, but pushes Bryce George into the left tackle spot or something, anything can happen.
Do you want to go ahead and take right tackle then?
Right tackle, I think, is pretty much Jennings Dunkers to lose.
Yes.
I behind him, I'm not really sure. I've heard Cannon Leonard. I don't know if maybe that's a situation where Bryce George could maybe slide into a right tackle backup position and Ideally, I mean, if you're looking at it from a pure standpoint of who's the best offensive lineman, I think Jennings Dunker's probably your best offensive lineman. You'd love to have him be your left tackle, but I don't know that that's interchangeable as easy for him or for those guys on that line. But I think he's a guy that he's playing tackle in college, but if he goes into the pros, he's going to be a guard. You know, and I know a lot of people say that about Iowa's tackles. You know, Tristan Wirfs proved that wrong, but I think in this case, he's probably not quick enough for the NFL level to be a tackle, but he's probably quick enough to be a guard there and bulky enough to be a guard, I think. But for the college side, that's a pretty good spot for him in that right tackle spot.
Yeah. Left guard, let's go with Bo Stevens, Leighton Jones. I don't think there's any real argument there as far as who's number one and number two on that. And like, you know, we keep talking and we keep harping on this, is that there's guys that are these backups and third string guys that could fill in emergency situations at any of these positions, except maybe center. Center's something you don't mess with the center. You want to leave him in and hope that he has a good season and doesn't get hurt, because that always messes with the quarterbacks when they're, you know, getting the snap. That just, I mean, not that they can't adjust to another center, but let's not have it happen during the game. Let's have it happen where they have at least a week to work with them, that kind of thing. So in left guard, I've got Bo Stevens and Leighton Jones. I think that's pretty solid.
Yeah, I would agree. Those are the two that I had as well. Right guard, Kate Pieper, I think is probably the heir apparent to start.
The Solon bail throwing champion.
Champion, yes.
Yeah.
After that, I don't know if it's going to be. I don't know who it's going to be. Honestly, Myslinski maybe. You know, could be a situation where Leighton Jones plops over to the right side if need be. You know, like I said, a lot of these guys are interchangeable in different positions. I think there's less of a transition from right guard to left guard as there would be from right tackle to left tackle. So I think the guards could be interchangeable. I think you just say, here's your four guards, put the two best guys out there to start with, whichever, and then have your two next best guys be the backups.
Going back to, you mentioned the name Cannon Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
Did you look at his stats, what his size is? He's 6'9".
Mm-hmm.
Did you know he was that big?
Yeah.
See, I didn't realize he was that big. I didn't really know who he was prior to.
From out of Minnesota.
He's just a huge individual.
Yep.
So right tackle, I guess. Yeah, that'd be the place to put him, I suppose, at that size. But center, Logan Jones hopefully doesn't get hurt. Cale Winter behind him is what I've got.
Yeah, I had Myslinski behind him as well. I mean, he
can switch
worked
over
there in the past. So I know there was another name that's I'd have to look it up. I know there was another guy that had been working at center, and
Cale Winter.
I don't think that's who I was thinking.
I
of.
wasn't.
Let me pull up the roster here because I can probably tell you who I thought I'd heard had been working in that spot as a backup.
Well, there's a long snapper, but I don't remember his name. He came in from another school, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm glad, because breaking in a new long snapper, somebody that hasn't done it much. Of course, you always want to go out and look for a high school kid that does the snapping and long snapping, and hopefully you can mold him into a quality Big Ten level long snapper. But yeah, while you're looking that up, did you know practice starts actually July 30th, 1 month prior to their game?
Yeah, on Wednesday, right?
Yep. First game is August 30th, so they have 30 days, actually 31, because there's 31 days in July, but they have 31 days until they have their first game at 5 p.m. against Albany at Iowa. So those are the things I have. Otherwise, I think Reese Dakin's your punter.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think there's any question about that. Hopefully he stays healthy and can do and improve on what he did last year, which I was very happy with his punting. And if he can just improve on that every year, he'll be right up there with Tory Taylor and in the annals of some of the best punters, Reggie Roby, that have ever punted at Iowa. And I'm sure there's some that I'm missing, Jason Baker, some of the guys that played in the NFL.
Ron Caluzzi.
Okay.
The guys that I was thinking about offensive line wise, and it's not been working at center that I can, but coming back from injuries, like Will Nolan is a guy that could be, when healthy, could push for a spot. And then from all indications, Lucas Allgaier is very, very good for a freshman coming in.
Okay.
He's got the size, he's what, 6, what is he, 6'5", 300 pounds as a true freshman.
Yeah, he's not going to get pushed around too much.
No. I mean, he could push for some time right away. I mean, it's not likely that a freshman gets in on the offensive line, but it's happened.
I can only think of one time that Iowa started a true freshman, even on day one. And I think his name was Mike Jones, maybe, about 2007 or 8, maybe on up that line, something like that. I remember him starting as a freshman, and I was like, that's unusual because Iowa doesn't do that. But
yeah, he came out of he's out of like Chicagoland area, wasn't he?
Sounds right.
Part of that 2005 recruiting class that was like top 10 recruiting class for
Could have
Iowa.
been.
Had like Ryan Bain and oh gosh, I can picture the guy's face. I think of his name. 2 words: Iowa Hawkeye pride. Defensive end.
Yeah, not Matt Roth.
Matt Roth, yes, 31. Matt Roth.
Yeah,
I don't know why I couldn't think of his name.
Matt Roth.
Crazy.
I think he's defensive.
Yeah, that was
coordinator at Notre Dame, was he, or did he move on to somebody else?
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
I think
they're
that's
not
where
back
he
in
was.
Iowa. I don't really pay that close attention.
I get you.
Some guys I do pay attention to a little bit more, but I hadn't heard anything on him. But yeah, those are some guys that I think that might, when they're healthy, could push for some time as well. I think Will Nolan definitely, when healthy, could push for time.
Good.
But we'll have to wait
said,
and see.
Best player.
Hopefully it's a healthy offensive line as well, and they get back to enforcing their will and pushing people around like we're used to.
And just so everybody knows, next week we're going to go through the defense.
Yes.
So that'll give us something to talk about next week. Maybe even we can get some first week reviews on what's going on, and if there's controversy on who's playing who, and hopefully nobody gets hurt right off. But if they're going to get hurt, it'd be good the first week if they're going to get hurt. But that way they've got the rest of the camp and then to get ready or to get healed up. I don't want to see that. I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But that's all we have. It's kind of a slower summer and things are moving along. Basketball wise, there's a commit, not a commit. There's a young man that's going to be visiting Iowa. Ethan Harris, I believe is his name. Hopefully we can get him. He'd be a class of 26 recruit. So other than that, I don't know anything else. It's been kind of a slow week. It's been hot and stormy. We got pretty good wind and rain last night. Got some branches down in our yard, but anything that's noteworthy, really, just smaller stuff.
Well, I'm going to give up the heat and humidity of Iowa to go to Florida for a few days.
Their heat and humidity down there, huh?
For the heat and humidity of Florida.
Yeah. Well.
All right. Well, I guess if that's everything. As usual, like and subscribe. Thanks to the 5 new subscribers we've gotten in the last week or a half.
Yes. Appreciate it.
It's fantastic. I sat at 49 for a long time. Now we're up to 54, which I know some people will be like, oh, 54, that's not that many. But hey, baby steps.
Baby steps.
So, but yeah, catch us on our social media spots. You know the drill. Buy the merchandise if you want to support the team. We'll have the QR code on the beginning of the video and here towards the end as well. And thank you for the support and for watching, and appreciate the commentary and the comments from people. And I know somebody recently found it and was elated that they found us. So that makes me makes me happy to hear.
Yes.
So
I hope we don't let you down.
all right, well, let's wrap it up on a Go Hawks and get out of here. So
Go Hawks.
all right, go Hawks.